Ladies and gentlemen, to those opposite, I have one word: shame. That is, ladies and gentlemen, how we characterise the case that has been put forward thus far by those opposite. There were three things they want to talk to you about, and they're all wrong, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, the first thing Pete wanted to talk to you about was this idea of an unfair burden. And his argument was, the employees, they bring it upon themselves. You know, they're the ones that are slaving away so they can get more money. Ladies and gentlemen, and that, work couldn't possibly play a role, and there are other things that give you, mental conditions, ladies and gentlemen. One thing on that. In terms of this idea about there's no, clear nexus or connection, what we do know is that people are now working longer than ever before. We've got people who are working 50 plus hours a week in really high pressure, high intensity, high stress jobs, and it's only getting longer. With the connectivity of the internet, people are now taking their work home with them, and it is permeating all aspects of their lives. So, at least to some degree, that work has to play a role in any developing mental illness that person then occurs. Even if it may not be the primary cause or the primary factor, it is certainly a substantial contributing factor to that illness. We think because of that factor, we think that the employer, who is the person there who controls the strings and controls what that person does, how much that person works, we think that there should be some onus that is placed on them. That is why we put this on the heads of senior partners, ladies and gentlemen. No, thank you. Okay, the second thing that Pete wanted to talk to you about was this idea to do with detrimental, this idea of a stigma. And I'm going to tell you why we think this is in fact going to become less of a problem under our model and why there won't be a stigma. But the second thing that Pete wanted to tell you about was the fact that the reason that people end up with these conditions is because they do it to themselves, because they're slaving away, changing the desk, because they want to get ahead. Two things on that. Number one, we don't think that if they do want to get ahead and get to a higher station of life and to be the best they can be, we don't think that that should have to incur a mental illness. No, thank you. We don't think that they should have to go through and should have to kill themselves in order to get ahead. We think that we should be able to have something that's called work-life balance, or we think that you should be able to get there without sustaining a mental injury. We don't think that that is at all unreasonable and outside of the hands. The second point that we wanted to put to you was Pete said they're not chaining you to a desk. No, they're not chaining you to a desk. Pete, I'm pretty sure those went out of fashion for a little while. But on that same point, and by the same... I have actually worked at Macca's. I was terrible at it. That's why I tried balls. No, on that point, they don't actually physically change you to the desk. No. But there is an implied thing within the culture whereby people do work harder, they do work longer hours. These senior partners also control the caseload you get given and the time frames. Now, it may not just be one partner, it may be a range of partners from whom you're receiving this work. But we think that those time pressures and constraints that are placed upon junior lawyers are a very large contributing factor to the mental injury that later results. For that reason, we think that because they are therefore at least in some decent part responsible, we think that they should have to pay for the counselling bills when that person then sustains a major psychological injury. Okay, so I've got 2 points that I'm going to talk to you about. One, I'm going to talk to you about why we think this is going to change the culture, and number 2, I'm going to talk to you about why this is going to reduce the stigma that is attached to mental health. Okay, so in terms of the first thing, yeah.
My ex-girlfriend has a lot of responsibility for the fact that I suffered mental anguish in grade 12. Should she have to pay for my counselling bills?
If you can get it too, awesome. Good luck with that though. What we say here is that there is a clear nexus between the employer and the psychological injury because of the hours that they made you work for the reasons that I previously discussed. We think that because there is that link there and because they exercise that degree of control over the employee, we think that that is why they should have at least some part in dealing with the psychological injuries and the bills that then occur. So in terms of now talking to changing culture, essentially what we know is that partners attain a benefit from the profitability of that company. We know that partners like money and they like profits. What we know that they don't like is avoidable bills they don't have to otherwise pay. Yeah. So basically, what do we think that'll make them do? We think that'll make them take precautions so that they then don't have to pay those bills.
Like not employing those employees?
No, absolutely not. And the reason for that to deal with it. Number one, there's a thing to do with privacy. Number two, in terms of firm culture. Everyone loves to know that, they're the happy, loving firm that takes good care of its employees. What we can see from these models is that we think that this will force them to actually take care of their employees, whether they might say on the outside, oh yes, we have marvelous firm culture and we take care of our employees. We think this is a way to actually make them live up to it. And we're absolutely happy to stand for that on our side of the house. No, thank you. We don't think this will lead to any sort of decrease in employment either, because we just don't think, number one, that we just don't think that's going to happen, because we think they still need the work. And we know that presently, if to be enrolled as a solicitor in Queensland, you have to declare if you have a mental health injury, if you have got some sort of diagnosed mental health thing. What we know now is that most people don't declare them anyway. And we don't think that's going to change under this system. We think they're still going to get employed. We think that there are initiatives in terms of case loading, in terms of the time frames, that will mean that they will actually take proactive initiatives to make sure that their workers don't get psychological injuries, so they don't have to take the sick days and whatever goes with it, and they don't have to incur the bills that then go with them. So that's why we think we're absolutely going to change the culture on this. The second idea that I want to bring you tonight is about reducing stigma. Essentially, what we've seen in the past is that mental health has been sort of a stigma, because it's not like a physiological injury where you can sort of point to and go, look, my arm's missing. It's a psychological thing that you can't see. It's intangible. And the problem has been that in the past it's been, well, clearly, pardon the pun, but it's all in your head. Anyway, the point is that this will now bring it into the spotlight and make it recognisable that this is, in fact, a recognisable category of injury and something that is serious and needs to be looked into. We think that when we make them do that, we think that it will make them take a proactive approach in terms of dealing with it, and we think that it'll mean that it's less stigmatised in the workplace. We think that that is a really good thing, because we think it'll make people step forward and will actually not be afraid in order to deal with these mental health problems rather than suffering them in the dark. Cool. So what have I told you today? Today I told you two things. Number one, I told you that this is going to change the culture. I told you that it's going to change the culture because partners don't like paying fees, they don't like paying